So, good day everyone. My name is Dexter Kilisadio Tanso. I am 26 years old. I was born and raised in Calubian, Leyte. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Accountancy from St. Paul's School of Professional Studies last 2023. At present, I serve as an accounting associate of Veloso Farms Incorporated, and I am also the operations manager of SMB Sand and Gravel Quarrying and the security manager of Michaelite Security Services Incorporated. Today, I will be your presenter for Module 1 of the subject Philosophical and Psychosocial Foundation in Public Administration. So in this discussion, we will explore the philosophical foundations and ethical principles that shape public administration practices by providing a deeper understanding of the values, ideas, and moral responsibilities that guide public servants in serving the public effectively, ethically, and with integrity. But before moving forward to my formal discussion, let me first answer this question. So, why did you choose this master's degree program in public administration? Or why did you choose to pursue this master's degree program in public administration? So, personally, I chose to pursue this master's degree program in public administration because I want to enhance my knowledge and leadership skills in governance and public service. I believe that this program will help me prepare to become a more competent, ethical, and effective public servant, enabling me to contribute to good governance and make a meaningful impact on my community and eventually to the country. So before we proceed to our formal discussion, let us first take a look at the learning objectives for today's session. So by the end of this discussion, you should have a better understanding of the philosophical texts and ethical models, as well as local governance codes and ethical standards, and appreciate their importance in guiding an ethical, accountable, and effective public administration. So let us first discuss philosophical foundation. Let us define what is philosophy. As we all know, philosophy comes from the Greek words philo, which means love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. So altogether, the word philosophy means the love of wisdom. Philosophy is the study of the fundamental questions about knowledge, truth, reality, values, ethics, and human existence. It encourages people to think critically, reason logically, and examine the beliefs before making decisions. In the context of public administration, philosophy serves as the foundation for how public officials make decisions, formulate policies, and serve the public, and it promotes values such as justice, fairness, accountability, integrity, and the common good, which are essential in ethical and effective governance. Moving forward, what are philosophical foundations? Philosophical foundations refers to the fundamental beliefs, principles, and values, as well as ideas that guide how individuals, organizations, and governments think, make decisions, and act. So they provide the theoretical basis for understanding what is right, what is just and beneficial for the society. In public administration, philosophical foundations help public servants understand the purpose of government, the role of public institutions, and their responsibility to serve the people. So they influence how laws are implemented, how policies are developed, and how public resources are managed. Let's say, for example, when a government officials decide how to allocate a limited budget, philosophical foundations encourage them to ask the following questions. Number one, is this decision fair? Does it promote the common good? Is it ethical and transparent? Or will it be beneficial to the people, especially those who need it most? So moving forward, let us discuss the importance of philosophical foundations. I have listed here some of the importance of philosophical foundations. So philosophical foundations, as we discussed earlier, are important because they provide the core values and the guiding principles on how public administrators think, make decisions, and serve the public. They help ensure that government's actions are ethical, fair, and focused on public interest. So let us discuss this one. Each and promotes ethical governance. So philosophical foundations emphasizes ethics, integrity, honest, and accountability. So these principles help public administrators make decisions that uphold the public interest and prevent corruption. Next, we have guides decision making. Philosophy develops critical and logical thinking, enabling administrators to analyze issues, evaluate alternatives, and make an informed decisions based on facts and reason rather than personal bias. Next, we have strengthens public service. Public administration is centered on serving the people. Philosophical foundations reinforce values such as responsibility, compassion, fairness, and commitment to the common good, leading to a more responsive and citizen-centered governance. Fourth, we have supports justice and equality. Philosophical concepts of justice and human rights encourage administrators to provide equal opportunities and fair treatment to all citizens, regardless of their background or social status. We have fifth, improves policy development. Philosophical principles help shape policies that are ethical, sustainable, and aligned with societal values. They encourage administrators to consider both immediate and long-term impacts of government programs. Sixth, we have enhances leadership. So a strong philosophical foundation develops leaders who demonstrate integrity, wisdom, accountability, and professionalism. So these qualities fosters trust within government organizations and among the public. Seventh, we have builds public trust. When public administrators consistently apply ethical principles and act with transparency and fairness, citizens develop greater confidence in government institutions, strengthening democratic governance. And lastly, we have encourages continuous learning and innovation. So philosophy encourages reflection, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of knowledge. So these qualities help public administrators adapt to changing societal needs and improve the quality of public service. Moving forward to the next slide, we have the branches of philosophy. So philosophy is divided into several major branches, and each focusing on different aspects of human knowledge, reality, and behavior. So these branches help us understand the world and make an informed and ethical decisions. So let us discuss what is metaphysics. Metaphysics, or the study of reality, examines the nature of reality and existence. It asks questions about what is real, the nature of the universe, and the purpose of human life. So in public administration, metaphysics helps public leaders reflect on the purpose of government and the role of public service in improving the society. Next, we have epistemology, or the study of knowledge. Epistemology explores the nature, sources, and limits of knowledge. It seeks to understand how we know something is true. So in public administration, public administrators use evidence, research, and accurate data to make an informed policies and decisions. Third, we have axiology, or the ethics. So this is the study of morality. Axiology, or the ethics, is the branch of philosophy that examines moral values and principles that guide human behavior. It helps determine what is right and what is wrong. So in public administration, ethics promotes integrity, accountability, honesty, fairness, and transparency in public service. And lastly, we have the logic, or the study of reasoning. So logic is the study of correct reasoning and sound arguments. It teaches people how to think clearly and avoid errors in judgment. So in public administration, logic enables public administrators to analyze problems and evaluate alternatives and make a rational decisions. So in conclusion, philosophical foundations plays a vital role in public administration by providing the principles, values, and ethical standards that guide public officials in serving the people. They help administrators make an informed and just decisions, promote accountability and transparency, uphold integrity, and ensure that government actions are focused on the common good. By applying philosophical principles, public administrators become more effective leaders who can address societal challenges with fairness, critical thinking, and compassion. Ultimately, a strong philosophical foundation contributes to good governance, public trust, and sustainable national and community development. Let's move forward to ethical principles. So as we all know, ethical principles in public administration are moral values that guides the behavior, decisions of public officials. They ensure that government actions are honest, fair, transparent, accountable, and focused on serving the public interest. In public administration, ethical principles help build public trust, prevent corruption, promote good governance, and ensure that services are delivered with integrity, professionalism, and respect for all citizens. So let us define what is ethics. So ethics refers to the evaluation of moral values, principles, and standards of human conduct and its application in daily life to determine acceptable human behavior. In other words, this is the branch of philosophy that studies moral principles and values that guides people in determining what is right and wrong. It helps individuals make responsible and ethical decisions. So, furthermore, ethics is the rational reflection on what is right, what is wrong, what is just, what is unjust, what is good, and what is bad in terms of human behavior. So we have listed here some of the ethical principles. We have truthfulness, honesty, loyalty, respect, fairness, integrity, and accountability. Let's take, for example, honesty. So, for example, a public official reports government funds accurately and does not falsify records. We also have integrity. For example, a government employee refuses to accept bribes or gifts in exchange for some favors. We also have accountability. Let's say, for example, a department head takes responsibility for the outcomes of government programs and explains how public funds were used. We also have fairness. For example, a public administrator provides services equally to all citizens without favoritism or discrimination. And lastly, we have transparency. For example, a local government publishes its budget and procurement activities that is accessible to the public. So, the origin of ethics. So, as we all know, the word ethics comes from the Greek word ethos, which means character, custom, or the way of life. It was developed by ancient Greek philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and especially Aristotle, who believed that ethics is about living a virtuous life and making morally good decisions. So in public administration, ethics serves as the foundation for guiding public officials to act with integrity, fairness, accountability, and responsibility while serving the public. So we have here the types of ethics. We have meta-ethics, normative ethics, applied ethics, and descriptive ethics. Let us first explain this or discuss meta-ethics. When we say meta-ethics, this is the branch of ethics that seeks to understand the nature of ethical properties, statements, attitudes, and judgment. A meta-ethical question is abstract and relates to a wide range of more specific practical questions. In other words, meta-ethics is the branch of ethics that examines the nature, meaning, and origin of moral values and ethical judgments. So let's say, for example, instead of asking, what is the right thing to do? So meta-ethics asks the questions, what does right or wrong really mean? And where do moral values come from? For example, in public administration, when a public official says accepting a bribe is wrong, meta-ethics asks, why is bribery considered wrong? Or is it because of laws, social values, or the universal moral principles? Okay? So next, we have normative ethics. Normative ethics is the study of ethical action. It is distinct from meta-ethics and descriptive ethics. In other words, meta-ethics is the branch of ethics that focuses on what people ought to do and the moral standards that determine right and wrong behavior. It provides principles that guide ethical decision making and proper conduct. So for example, in public administration, a public official should act with honesty, fairness, and accountability and avoid corruption and always make decisions that serve the public interest. Next, we have applied ethics. When we say applied ethics, this is the most practical of the three divisions of the philosophy of ethics. This is also the actual application of ethical theory for the purpose of choosing an ethical action in a given issue. In other words, applied ethics is the branch of ethics that focuses on applying moral principles to real life situations and practical problems. It helps individuals make ethical decisions when facing a specific issues or dilemmas. For example, a public official refuses to accept a bribe, follows procurement laws, protects confidential information, and uses public funds responsibly. These actions demonstrate the application of ethical principles in everyday government work. And lastly, we have descriptive ethics, or the study of people's belief about morality. In other words, descriptive ethics is the branch of ethics and that describes and how studies how people actually behave and what moral beliefs they hold. It does not judge whether an action is right or wrong. Instead, it observes and explains people's ethical practices and values. Let's say, for example, researchers may study how government employees handles conflict of interest or how citizens perceive the ethical behavior of public officials. The goal is to understand existing practices and not to determine whether they are morally right or wrong. Okay? So moving forward, we have the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics refers to a written set of guidelines issued by an organization to its worker and management to help them conduct their actions in accordance with its primary values and ethical standards. In other words, a code of ethics is a set of principles, values, and standards of conduct that guides the behavior and the decision making of individuals within a profession or organization. In public administration, it serves as the moral framework that ensures public officials perform their duties with integrity, honesty, accountability, fairness, and professionalism. It helps prevent corruption, abuse of power, and conflict of interest while promoting transparency and responsibility in government. By following the code of ethics, public servants earns the trust and confidence of the people and ensures that government services are delivered effectively, ethically, and in the best interest of the public. So we have here conditions for making an effective code of ethics. So I have listed here 7 conditions for an effective code of ethics. A code of ethics is only effective if it is properly implemented and consistently followed. So the following conditions help ensure its effectiveness. Number 1, leadership commitment. Leaders and managers must set a good example by consistently following and promoting ethical behavior. Number 2, we have clear communication. The code of ethics should be easy to understand and clearly communicated to all employees and public officials. Third, education and training. Regular ethics training helps employees understand ethical standards and how to apply them in their daily work. Next, we have consistent enforcement. Ethical rules must be applied fairly and violations should be addressed through appropriate disciplinary actions. Next, we have accountability. Public officials must take responsibility for their actions and be held accountable for any unethical conduct. Next, we have reporting and protection. Employees should have a safe and confidential ways to report unethical behavior without a fear of retaliation. And lastly, regular review and improvement. The Code of Ethics should be updated periodically to reflect new challenges, laws, and public expectations. Okay, so what are the difficulties in implementing the Code of Ethics? The main difficulty with the Code of Ethics is that they do not establish priority between norms and beliefs. So there are 3 main areas that can create an obstacle to put codes into practice. So we have culture, design, and the enforcement. How does culture becomes a hindrance in implementing the Code of Ethics? So culture can make a Code of Ethics difficult to implement because different beliefs and traditions may conflict with ethical standards. So public officials must follow the Code of Ethics to ensure a fair, honest, and impartial service to all citizens. We also have the design. So the design of the Code of Ethics can make its implementation difficult if it is unclear, too complicated, unrealistic, or lacks of practical guidance. A well-designed code should be clear, relevant, and easy to apply so public officials can consistently make an ethical decisions. And lastly is the enforcement. Enforcement can make the implementation of the Code of Ethics difficult when ethical rules are not applied fairly and consistently. So strong and impartial enforcement helps ensure accountability, prevents misconduct, and promotes public trust in government. So moving forward, we have the code of ethics for the different professions. Let's say, for example, the code of ethics for medical profession. The code of ethics for medical profession is a set of ethical principles that guides doctors and other healthcare professionals in providing a safe, respectful, and compassionate care to patients. It ensures that medical professionals act with integrity, competence, honesty, and respect for human dignity. So the code of ethics for medical professionals requires the healthcare professionals to number one, patient's welfare is first. Two, maintain confidentiality of patient's information. Third, obtain informed consent before treatment. Fourth, treat all patients fairly without discrimination. And lastly, is the practice with professional competence and follow the accepted medical standards. We also have here the ethics for accountants. So the code of ethics for accounting profession is the set of ethical principles that guides accountants in performing their duties with honesty, integrity, objectivity, professionalism, and confidentiality. It ensures that accountants provide accurate and reliable financial information while maintaining public trust. So the code requires accountants to, number one, act with integrity by being honest and truthful. Two, maintain an objectivity and avoid conflict of interest. Third, we have exercise professional competence and due care by keeping their knowledge and skills up to date. Fourth, protect confidentiality of client and employer information. And lastly, demonstrate professional behavior by complying with laws, regulations, and professional standards. We also have here the engineer's code. So the code of ethics for engineering profession is a set of ethical principles that guides engineers in performing their duties with integrity, competence, responsibility, and professionalism. Its primary goal is to ensure that engineers protect public safety, health, and welfare by providing high-quality engineering services. So the code requires engineers to, number one, prioritize the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Two, perform only work within their area of responsibility or area of competence. Third, be honest and objective in professional reports and decisions. Fourth, avoid conflicts of interest and act with integrity. And lastly, comply with laws, regulations, and professional standards. So what are the ethical issues in public administration? So public servants face ethical issues that vary based on current situation of the society. Government have the responsibility to develop codes of conduct and ethics that every member of the society or community must abide by and put into action. So ethical issues in public administrations are situations where public officials face more dilemmas and challenges in deciding what is right and ethical while performing their duties. So these issues can affect public trust, government accountability, and the quality of public service. So these are the common ethical issues in the government. We have corruption. Number one is corruption. Corruption, for example, accepting bribes or misusing public funds. Number two, we have conflict of interest. For example, using one's position for personal or family benefit. Third, we have abuse of power. For example, misusing authority for personal or political gain. Fourth, we have lack of transparency. Let's say, for example, hiding information or making a secret decisions. And lastly is favoritism and nepotism. So, for example, giving an unfair advantages to relatives and friends. So, to address these issues, public officials must uphold integrity, accountability, transparency, fairness, and professionalism in all their actions. So, managing issues. Managing issues in public administration refers to the process of identifying, analyzing, and resolving problems or challenges that affect government operations and the delivery of public services. Public administrators must address issues effectively to ensure that government programs remain efficient, transparent, and responsive to the needs of the people. Common issues in public administration includes, as what we have mentioned earlier, corruption, limited budgets, political influence, poor service delivery, conflict of interest, and public complaints. So managing these issues requires ethical leadership, sound decision making, effective communication, accountability, and adherence to laws and government policies. For example, if a citizens complain about delays in processing government permits, public administrators should identify the cause of the delays, improve the procedures, allocate resources efficiently, and implement solutions to provide a faster and better services. So now, let us discuss ethical relativism. Ethical relativism is the belief that there is no single and universal standard of what is right and wrong. Instead, what is considered ethical depends on a person's culture, society, beliefs, or circumstances. According to this view, moral values may differ from one community or culture to another. For example, in some cultures, giving a gift to a public official is seen as a sign of respect or gratitude. However, in public administration, accepting such gifts uh, may violate ethical rules because it could create a conflict of interest or the appearance of favoritism. So this shows how cultural beliefs may differ from established ethical standards in government. So what is the importance of this in public administration? While public administrators should respect cultural diversity, they must also follow laws, codes of ethics, and professional standards. Ethical decisions should always prioritize integrity, fairness, accountability, and the public interest. Furthermore, ethical relativism is the belief that there are no universal standards for what is right and wrong. So this is something that may be considered right in one society and could be considered wrong in another. So that this is what I have mentioned earlier. So now, moving forward to ethical universalism. Ethical universalism is the belief that certain moral principles are universal and applies to everyone, regardless of culture, religion, nationality, or personal beliefs. It holds that some actions are always right or always wrong because they are based on universal values such as honesty, justice, fairness, respect, and human dignity. For example, again, accepting a bribe is considered unethical, regardless of the country or culture, because it violates the principles of integrity, accountability, and fairness. Likewise, public officials are expected to treat all citizens equal and uphold the rule of law. So, what is the importance of this ethical universalism in public administration? So ethical universalism promotes good governance by ensuring that public officials follow the same ethical standards, protect the public interest, and make decisions based on justice and integrity rather than personal or cultural preferences. So we have here examples of universal ethical principles or norms. We have honesty. So in public administration, honesty is essential because public officials are entrusted with serving the people and managing public resources. Honest public servants provide accurate information, use government funds responsibly, and avoid corruption, and make decisions based on the public interest rather than the personal gain. Next, we have trustworthiness. So in public administration, it is essential because public officials are entrusted with public resources and the responsibility to serve the people. They must make decisions fairly, protect confidential information, keep their commitments, and always act in the interest of the public. So we also have treating people with dignity and respect. So in public administration, public officials should treat all citizens with fairness, courtesy, and impartiality, regardless of their age, gender, religion, social status, or political affiliation. This helps ensure equal access to government services and it strengthens public trust. We also have respecting the rights of others. So in public administration, public officials must respect citizens' rights by providing an equal access to government services, protecting confidentiality, and following the due process and making decisions that are lawful and impartial. And lastly, we have avoiding unnecessary harm to your workmates and your fellow public servants. Now, let's move forward to ethical convergence. Ethical convergence is defined as the practice of a uniform system of ethical codes in different countries that are culturally and socially different. So ethical convergence is the idea that different ethical theories, values, and cultural perspectives can lead to the same moral conclusion or decision. Although people may have different reasons for their beliefs, they can still agree on what is the right course of action. So in public administration, ethical convergence helps public officials make decisions that are widely accepted because they are based on a shared values such as honesty, fairness, accountability, justice, and the public interest. So what is its important in public administration? It is important because it promotes ethical and consistent decision making. It encourages cooperation among the people with different beliefs. It strengthens public trust through shared ethical standards, and it supports good governance and accountability. So we have here reasons for ethical convergence. Number one, the growth of the international trade and trading blocs increased in pressures to imitate business practices. Third, we have varied cultural background. Employees require common standards. And lastly, an increasing number of business watchdogs. So now, we have here ethical behavior. Ethical behavior refers to acting in a way that is honest, fair, responsible, and consistent with moral principles and professional standards. It means doing what is right even when no one is watching, and making decisions that benefit others rather than serving its personal interest. So I have listed here four ethical behavior. We have value systems, locus of control, Machiavellianism, cognitive moral development. So in public administration, ethical behavior requires public officials to perform their duties with integrity, accountability, transparency, impartiality, and professionalism. It helps ensure that government decisions are made in the public interest and that citizens are treated fairly and respectfully. So let us discuss what is value systems. A value system is a set of beliefs and principles that guides a person in deciding what is right or wrong. So in ethical behavior, values influence how people make decisions, treat others, and fulfill their responsibilities. Values such as honesty, integrity, fairness, respect, and accountability encourage ethical actions. We also have locus of control. Locus of control refers to a person's belief about how much control they have over their actions and their consequences. So locus of control is divided into two aspects. We have internal locus of control and the external locus of control. So internal locus of control is the beliefs that their choices and actions determine the outcome. They are more likely to make responsibility and accountability for their ethical decisions. Whereas, on the other hand, external locus of control is the belief that outcomes are mainly influenced by luck, circumstances, or other people. They may be more likely to blame others for unethical actions. Third, we have Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is the tendency to prioritize personal power, success, or advantage, sometimes by manipulating or deceiving others. So in ethical behavior, a highly Machiavellian person may justify unethical actions if they believe those actions will help achieve their goal. And lastly, we have the cognitive moral development. This refers to how a person's ability to understand, reason about, and make ethical decisions develops over time. As people mature, they may move from simply following rules to making decisions based on fairness, principles, and concern for others. Now, we have ethical philosophies. So, ethical philosophy, we have categorical imperative, utilitarianism, hedonism, the golden mean, the golden rule, and the veil of ignorance. So let us discuss what is categorical imperative. So this is based on the philosophies of Immanuel Kant. The categorical imperative states that people should always do what is morally right because it is their duties, regardless of the consequences. An action is ethical if everyone could follow the same rule. For example, a public official refuses a bribe because accepting bribes is always wrong. Next, we have utilitarianism. Utilitarianism teaches that the best action is the one that produces the greatest good for the greatest number of people. For example, a local government builds a public hospital because this benefits the majority of the community. Third, we have hedonism. Hedonism is the belief that pleasure and happiness are the highest goals of human life. Let's say, for example, in public administration, public officials should prioritize the public's welfare over their own personal pleasure or gain. Fourth, we have the golden mean. So this is based on the philosophy of Aristotle. The golden mean teaches that virtue lies between two extremes. Ethical behavior is achieved by choosing moderation and balance. For example, a public official should always be confident but not arrogant. Fifth, we have golden rule. So the golden rule states that treat others as you would like others to treat you. So it promotes fairness, respect, and kindness. For example, a government employee treats all citizens equally and courteously. And lastly, we have the veil of ignorance. So this philosophy is based on John Rawls. So the veil of ignorance teaches that decisions should be made without personal bias or self-interest, ensuring fairness for everyone. For example, a policymaker creates laws without considering how they would personally benefit, resulting in fair policies for all citizens. So these are the advantages of ethics. Number one, significant improvement to society. Two, cultivate strong teamwork and productivity. Third, support employees' growth. Fourth, avoid penal action. And fifth, helps in quality management, strategic planning, diversity management. Okay? So moving forward, let us discuss the ethics in particular field of application. So I have listed here 8. We have bioethics, geoethics, business ethics, relational ethics, machine ethics, military ethics, political ethics, and public sector ethics. So let us discuss bioethics. Bioethics is the study of controversial ethics brought about by advances in biology and medicine. Bioethicists are concerned with the ethical questions that arise in the relationships among people, among life sciences, biotechnology, medicine, politics, laws, and philosophy. In other words, bioethics is the branch of ethics that deals with moral issues and decisions related to medicine, healthcare, biology, and life sciences. It helps ensure that medical and scientific practices respect human life, dignity, and rights. We also have geoethics. So genetics is an interdisciplinary field between geosciences and ethics which involves earth and planetary sciences as well as applied ethics. It deals with the way of human thinking and acting in relation to the significance of the earth as a system and as a model. In other words, geoethics is the branch of ethics that focuses on the responsible and ethical use, management, and protection of the Earth's resources and environment. It promotes sustainable practices and responsible decision making to protect both people and the planet. We also have business ethics. So business ethics is a form of applied ethics or professional ethics that examines ethical principles and moral or ethical problems that arise in a business environment. It applies, it applies to all aspects of business conduct and is relevant to the conduct of individuals and entire organization. In other words, business ethics is the branch of ethics that focuses on the moral principles and standards that guides the conduct of business and professionals. It promotes honesty, fairness, integrity, accountability, and social responsibility in all business activities. Now, Moving forward to relational ethics. Relational ethics are related to an ethics of care, research, researchers who employ relational ethics value and respect the connection between themselves and the people they study, and between researchers and the community in which they live and work. In other words, relational ethics is the branch of ethics that focuses on building a respectful, honest, and trusting relationships with others. It emphasizes mutual respect, empathy, responsibility, and open communications in all interactions. For example, a public administrator listens to citizens' concerns, treats them with respect, and makes decisions that consider their needs and welfare. Next, we have machine ethics. Machine ethics will likely drive advancement in understanding of human ethics by forcing us to address gaps in modern normative theory and by providing a platform for experimental investigation. In other words, machine ethics is the branch of ethics that studies how artificial intelligence, or AI, like robots and other autonomous systems, should behave according to ethical principles. It aims to ensure that machines make decisions that are safe, fair, transparent, and beneficial to the people. Moving forward, we have military ethics. Military ethics are intended to guide members of the armed forces to act in a manner consistent with the requirements of combat and military organizations. In other words, military ethics is the branch of ethics that guides the conduct and decision-making of military personnel. It emphasizes honor, integrity, discipline, courage, loyalty, and respect for human rights even during conflict or war. We also have political ethics. Political ethics is the practice of making moral judgments about political actions and political agents. In other words, political ethics is the branch of ethics that focuses on the moral principles that guide the actions and decisions of political leaders and public officials. It emphasizes honesty, integrity, accountability, fairness, transparency, and service to the public. For example, a government official makes decisions based on the public interest rather than personal or political gain and uses public funds responsibly. We also have public sector ethics. So public sector ethics is a set of principles that guides public officials in their service to their constituents, including their decision making on behalf of their constituent. In other words, public sector ethics is the branch of ethics that guides the conduct and decision making of government officials and public employees. It emphasizes integrity, accountability, transparency, fairness, and commitment to public interest in delivering government services. For example, a public employee processes applications fairly, uses public funds responsibly, and refuses to accept bribes or favors. Moving forward to ethical theories. Ethical theories are the framework or principles that helps people determine what is right or what is wrong and guide them in making moral decisions. So they provide different ways of evaluating actions and choosing the most ethical course of action. So in public administration, ethical theories help public officials make fair, responsible, and ethical decisions that promotes public interest, good governance, and accountability. So ethical theories is based on the individual's ethical ideology. Ethical theories allows a person to find an answer to an issue, to make a morally right decision, or to justify decision. So ethical theories challenges what we think is right and wrong, and people usually base their individual choices of ethical theory upon their life's experiences. So we have here the types of ethical theories. We have egoism, which focuses on the self and its need. We also have utilitarianism, or the overall pleasure and pain for all concerned. We also have deontology, or the duty. The care ethics, which focuses on relationships, vulnerability, and empathy. And lastly, we have virtue ethics, or the character. So let's discuss egoism. So egoism is an ethical theory that states that people should act in ways that promotes their own self-interest and well-being. According to egoism, an action is considered right if it benefits the individual making the decision. So in public administration, egoism can become unethical if public officials place their personal interest above the public interest. Public servants are expected to prioritize the welfare of the public rather than their own personal gain. For example, a government official who awards a contract to a company owned by a relative for personal benefit is acting based on egoism, which violates ethical standards. So, moving forward, egoism is based on personal interest, as what I have mentioned earlier. So we have psychological egoism, normative egoism, and according to ethical egoism, it is also okay or acceptable to make a decision or choose an action that benefits oneself. It argues about what we have it argues about we have no duty except to do what is best for ourselves. And there is only one ultimate principle of conduct, and that is the principle of self-interest. So we have here types of egoism. We have psychological egoism, unethical egoism, and the minimalist egoism. So what is psychological egoism? Psychological egoism is the theory that people naturally act in their own self-interest, believing that every action is ultimately motivated by a desire for personal benefit, satisfaction, or happiness. In public administration, this theory suggests that public officials may be motivated by personal interests, such as career advancement or recognition. However, ethical public service requires officials to put the public interest above their personal gain. For example, a public employee works hard to receive a promotion. While the action benefits the organization, the motivation is also personal. Now, let us discuss ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is the ethical theory that states that individuals ought to act in their own self-interest because doing what benefits oneself is considered morally right. It focuses on personal goals, needs, and well-being as the basis for decision making. So in public administration, ethical egoism may create challenges when public officials prioritize their own personal interest over public welfare. Public servants must ensure that personal benefits do not influence decisions that should be based on fairness, accountability, and common good. For example, a public official using government resources for personal advantage is practicing an ethical self-interest because it places personal gain above public responsibility. Now we have minimalist egoism. This is not a normative claim and usually not a descriptive claim. So minimalist egoism is the idea that individuals may pursue their own interests and needs, but they should do so without causing harm or unfairness to others. It recognizes personal interest while also acknowledging the importance of social responsibility and cooperation. So in public administration, minimalist egoism means that public officials may consider their personal goals such as career development or professional growth, but they must ensure that their actions remain ethical and aligned with the public interest. Let's say, for example, a government employee seeks promotion by improving skills and performance while continuing to provide a fair and honest service to the citizens. Now, we have utilitarianism or the overall pleasure and pain for all concerned. So, utilitarianism is an ethical theory that states an action is morally right if it produces the greatest good or benefit for the greatest number of people. It focuses on the results or consequences of the decisions rather than only the intention behind them. In public administration, utilitarianism guides public officials to make decisions and policies that maximize public welfare. It improves community well-being and provides the greatest benefit to society. Let's say, for example, a local government prioritizes building a public health center that will serve thousands of residents rather than a project that benefits only a small group. Deontology. Moving forward to deontology or the duty. Deontology is an ethical theory that focuses on duties, rules, and moral obligations rather than the consequences of an action. It teaches that an action is ethical when it is done because it is the right thing to do, even if the outcome may not provide personal benefits. So in public administration, deontology emphasizes that public officials must follow laws, regulations, and ethical standards while performing their duties. So decisions should be based on principles such as honesty, fairness, and responsibility, and not on personal interest or possible rewards. For example, a government employee follows procurement rules and refuses a bribe, even if accepting it could provide a personal benefit or make a process easier. Moving forward, we have care ethics or the relationships, vulnerability, and empathy. So care ethics is an ethical theory that emphasizes the importance of compassion, empathy, relationships, and concern for the well-being of others. It focuses on understanding people's needs and making decisions based on care, responsibility, and human connection rather than only following rules in pursuing the outcomes. So in public administration, care ethics encourages public officials to be responsive, compassionate, and attentive to the needs of the citizens, especially vulnerable groups. It promotes people-centered governance and ensures that government services consider the experience and welfare of the community. Let's say, for example, a local government provides immediate assistance and support to families affected by disasters, prioritizing their needs and well-being. So, what are the basic beliefs of this theory? So, all individuals are independent for achieving their interests. Those particularly vulnerable to our choices and their outcomes deserves extra consideration to be measured according to the level of their vulnerability to one's choices and the level of their effectiveness by one's choices and no one else's. And it is necessary to attend to the contextual detail of the situation in order to safeguard and promote the actual specific interest of those involved. So, what are the ethical elements of care? We have attentiveness, responsibility, and competence and responsiveness. And lastly, we have virtue ethics or the character. This is an approach to ethics that emphasizes the character of the moral agent rather than the rules or consequences as the key element of ethical thinking. In other words, virtue ethics is an ethical theory that focuses on a person's character, values, and moral virtues rather than only on rules or consequences. It emphasizes developing good qualities such as honesty, courage, fairness, compassion, and integrity to guide ethical behavior. In public administration, virtue ethics highlights the importance of public officials having good character and strong moral values. A responsible public servant should act ethically not only because of laws and regulations, but because doing what is right reflects their commitment to serving the people and the public. So, for example, a government official honestly reports the uses of public funds because integrity and accountability are part of their character. So that concludes my discussion. And to conclude my discussion, we have learned that philosophical foundations and ethical principles serves as the guiding framework of public administration. They help public officials understand their responsibilities, make sound decisions, and uphold values such as integrity, accountability, fairness, commitment to the public interest. Understanding different ethical theories and principles allows us to appreciate the importance of ethical leadership and responsible governance. As future public administrators, we must not only possess knowledge and skills, but also demonstrate a strong moral values and a genuine commitment to serving the people. I hope that this discussion has provided a valuable insight into how philosophy and ethics shape effective, transparent, and people-centered public administration. Once again, thank you everyone, and that concludes my presentation.